The only thing colder than my wife's heart that morning was the kitchen tile beneath my bare feet as she waved that check in my face. $12 million. And apparently that bought her a new personality and a ticket to kick me out. "Eli, we need to talk," Vanessa said, her voice carrying that fake sweetness she used when she wanted something. The lottery check sat on our granite countertop like a loaded weapon. "I'm Eli Turner, 34 years old, systems technician for the city's water department. Not glamorous, but steady work that kept the lights on in our suburban home for 8 years of marriage. Until this morning, when everything changed." "About what, Vanessa?" I asked, though the suitcases by the door already told the story. She smoothed her blonde hair, freshly highlighted, I noticed, and adjusted her new designer blouse. "I've been thinking. We've grown apart. This lottery win is a sign that I need to start fresh. We bought that ticket together, with our joint account money. Actually," she said, pulling out a manila folder, "Shelley looked into it. The ticket was purchased with my credit card. Legally, it's mine." Shelley Morrison, her lawyer friend from book club. Should have seen that coming. "So, you're just throwing away 8 years?" Vanessa's mother, Rhonda, emerged from the living room like a vulture circling carrion. "Eli, dear, surely you can see that Vanessa deserves better now. She has opportunities." Behind her came Vanessa's sister, Gina, 29 and perpetually attached to her phone. She was already recording, probably for her social media followers. "This is so crazy," she whispered to her camera. "Better than what?" I asked. "Better than the guy who worked double shifts to pay for your mother's medical bills? Better than the guy who supported your dreams of opening that boutique that never happened?" "Don't be dramatic," Vanessa said. "I'm being generous. I'll give you $50,000 to start over. That's more than fair." 50,000 out of 12 million. I almost laughed. How thoughtful. "Take it or leave it," Rhonda snapped. "My daughter doesn't owe you anything." That's when Chad Royce walked through my front door like he owned the place. Vanessa's former boss at the insurance office, now apparently her financial advisor. 6'2", gym sculpted with that artificial tan that screamed midlife crisis. "Everything okay here?" Chad asked, placing a possessive hand on Vanessa's shoulder. The pieces clicked together. "How long?" I asked Vanessa. "How long what?" "How long have you been planning this?" "The lottery win was 3 days ago. You've got legal documents, suitcases packed, and your boyfriend here to escort me out. This isn't spontaneous." Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Vanessa's cheeks flushed. "Chad is helping me navigate this transition." "I bet he is." Chad stepped forward. "Look, buddy, there's no need to make this difficult. Vanessa's made her decision. Be a gentleman about it." "A gentleman," I repeated. "Right." Gina giggled behind her phone. "He looks so confused. This is going viral for sure." I looked around at these people, my wife's family, her lover, her enablers, all waiting for me to break down or beg. Instead, I smiled. "You know what, Vanessa? You're absolutely right. This is a fresh start." I walked to the bedroom, threw some clothes in a duffel bag, and grabbed my laptop. When I returned, they were all still standing there, probably expecting tears or threats. "Eli," Vanessa said, almost sounding concerned. "Where will you go?" "Don't worry about it. I'll figure something out. I always do." Chad handed me an envelope. "Your check and the divorce papers. Vanessa's being more than fair." I took the envelope without opening it. "Fair. Sure." As I reached the door, I turned back. "One question, Vanessa. Do you remember what you said on our wedding day? About being partners through everything?" Her expression softened for just a moment. "People change, Eli." "Yes," I said. "They do." I walked out of my house, former house, and climbed into my 10-year-old Honda Civic. Through the window, I could see them celebrating, probably planning how to spend my share of the money. My phone buzzed, text from my best friend Mitch. "Dude, saw Gina's video. You okay?" The video was already online. "Lottery winner kicks out loser husband." Gina's commentary made me sound pathetic, desperate. The comments were brutal. I drove to the cheapest apartment I could find, a studio above a Chinese restaurant. The smell of grease and disappointment seemed appropriate. As I unpacked my few belongings, I opened Chad's envelope. $50,000. And divorce papers that would give Vanessa everything. I sat on the second-hand mattress and opened my laptop. Time to do some research. Vanessa thought she was clever, but she'd made mistakes. The lottery ticket might have been purchased with her card, but it was bought during work hours when she was clocked in at the insurance office. Company policy stated any gambling during work time could be grounds for termination and forfeiture of winnings. More interesting was Chad's involvement. As her former supervisor, any relationship during their work overlap could be considered workplace harassment. The insurance company had strict policies about that. And Shelley, the helpful lawyer friend, she specialized in family law, not lottery winnings. She was practicing outside her expertise, which could get her in trouble with the state bar. I made a list. Then I made some calls. My phone rang. Vanessa. Eli, I just wanted to make sure you're settling in okay. Very thoughtful of you. Look, I know this is hard, but it's better this way. We both know our marriage was over. Was it? I must have missed that conversation. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Sign the papers, take the money, and move on. I'm definitely moving on, I said. In fact, I heard through the grapevine that you're having a celebration dinner tomorrow night. Anniversary of our first date, right? How romantic. Silence. How did you? Never mind. It's just a small gathering. I'm sure it is. Well, have fun spending our money. My money, Eli. The sooner you accept that, the better. After she hung up, I smiled. Tomorrow night's dinner party was about to get interesting. I spent the evening making preparations, legal research, phone calls, and a trip to the men's warehouse for a decent suit. If I was going to crash a party, I might as well look good doing it. The next morning brought more social media posts from Gina. Photos of Vanessa's shopping spree, Chad's new watch, plans for a luxury vacation. They were spending money like it was endless. But I'd found something interesting in my research. Vanessa had opened 3 new bank accounts in the past week, all in her name only. She was moving money around, trying to hide assets before the divorce was finalized. That was a mistake. I called Mitch. I need a favor. Anything, man. This whole situation is messed up. I need you to serve some papers tonight. Think you can handle that? Legal papers? Eli, what are you planning? Justice, I said. Just justice. The Riverside Tower was one of those gleaming high-rises that screamed new money. Vanessa had rented the penthouse for her celebration dinner. Nothing but the best for her fresh start. I straightened my tie in the elevator mirror. The navy suit fit perfectly, and I'd even gotten a haircut. If I was going to confront my cheating wife and her enablers, I'd do it with style. The elevator opened to reveal a party in full swing. 24 people mingled in the spacious apartment, champagne glasses catching the light from the floor-to-ceiling windows. I recognized most of them, Vanessa's co-workers, her book club friends, some neighbors. Eli? Vanessa's voice cut through the conversation. She stood frozen by the bar, wearing a red dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. What are you doing here? Celebrating, I said, walking into the room with confidence I didn't entirely feel. Isn't that what we're doing? Celebrating new beginnings? Chad appeared at her side, his hand possessively gripping her waist. You weren't invited, buddy. Time to go. Actually, I have an invitation. I pulled out my phone and showed them the screenshot of Gina's social media post. Right here. Open celebration for Vanessa's good fortune. I'm part of that fortune, aren't I? The room had gone quiet. All eyes on our little drama. Gina was already recording, of course. Eli, please, Vanessa whispered. Don't do this here. Do what? Join the celebration? Toast to your success? I grabbed a champagne flute from a passing waiter. To Vanessa Turner, who's about to learn that lottery winnings aren't as simple as she thinks. That's when Mitch appeared in the doorway, looking uncomfortable but determined. Excuse me, is there a Vanessa Turner here? I have some documents to deliver. Vanessa's face went pale. Documents? Mitch handed her a thick manila envelope. You've been served. Injunction on all lottery proceeds pending investigation of marital assets and potential fraud. The room erupted in whispers. Chad snatched the papers from Vanessa's hands, his face reddening as he read. This is harassment. No, I said. This is due process. See, while you've been busy spending our money, I've been busy doing research. I pulled out my own folder. Vanessa, remember when you told everyone the lottery ticket was bought with your credit card? That's true. But you bought it at 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday while you were clocked in at Meridian Insurance. Company policy clearly states that any personal activities during work hours can result in termination and forfeiture of benefits. That's ridiculous, Rhonda snapped. A lottery ticket takes 30 seconds to buy. 30 seconds of company time, I agreed. But that's not the interesting part. The interesting part is the security footage from the convenience store. I had everyone's attention now. Even Gina had stopped recording to listen. The footage shows Vanessa and Chad together, buying the ticket, during work hours, while Chad was her direct supervisor. I looked at Chad, whose artificial tan couldn't hide his sudden pallor. How long has this relationship been going on, Chad? Because if it started while you were her boss, that's workplace harassment. Meridian Insurance has a zero-tolerance policy for that. You're bluffing, Chad said, but his voice lacked conviction. Am I? I pulled out my phone and played a video, security footage from the store, clear as day, showing Vanessa and Chad laughing together as they bought the ticket. The timestamp showed 2:47 p.m. Tuesday afternoon. I've already sent copies to Meridian's HR department and legal team, I continued. They're very interested in reviewing Chad's employment history and any potential policy violations. Vanessa was staring at the papers Mitch had served, her hands shaking. Eli, you can't do this. I'm not doing anything except protecting my legal rights. The injunction freezes all lottery assets until the court determines proper distribution. Should take about 6 months. 6 months? Chad exploded. We have commitments, investments. You have commitments, I corrected, with money that isn't legally yours yet. Shelley Morrison pushed through the crowd, her face flushed with anger. Eli, this is vindictive and petty. Vanessa offered you a generous settlement. Generous? I laughed. 50,000 out of 12 million? That's not generous, Shelley. That's insulting. It's more than you deserve, Rhonda declared. Really? Let's see what the court thinks. I opened my folder again. I've documented every contribution I made to this marriage. The second mortgage I took out to pay for your medical bills, Rhonda. The loan I co-signed for Gina's failed business venture. The credit cards I paid off when Vanessa's boutique dream fell through. I looked around the room at their shocked faces. 8 years of marriage, 8 years of partnership, 8 years of building a life together. And you think 50,000 covers my share? The ticket was mine, Vanessa said weakly. The ticket was purchased with marital assets during the course of our marriage. Texas is a community property state. I'm entitled to half of everything acquired during our marriage. Chad stepped forward, trying to intimidate me with his size. Look, you pathetic little man. Careful, Chad, I interrupted. We're in a room full of witnesses, and I'm recording this conversation. I held up my phone. Wouldn't want to add harassment to your growing list of problems. The party guests were starting to leave, the celebration mood thoroughly destroyed. Gina was frantically texting, probably updating her followers on the drama. This isn't over, Vanessa said, her voice cold with fury. No, I agreed. It's just getting started. I finished my champagne and set the glass on the bar. Lovely party, by the way. The penthouse is nice. Hope you enjoyed it, because it might be the last luxury you can afford for a while. As I walked toward the elevator, I heard Chad behind me. We'll fight this. We'll destroy you. I turned back with a smile. You're welcome to try. The elevator doors closed on their furious faces. As I descended toward the parking garage, my phone buzzed with notifications. Gina's live stream had gone viral, but this time the comments were different. Wife tries to cheat husband out of lottery winnings. Plot twist. Husband fights back. Team Eli all the way. In the parking garage, I found Chad's white Tesla Model S parked in a premium spot. Such a beautiful car. It would be a shame if something happened to it. I pulled out the bottle of red wine I'd grabbed from the party. Expensive stuff. Probably cost more than I made in a week. I uncorked it and poured the entire bottle over the pristine white paint, watching it cascade down the windshield and pool on the hood. Then I took out my keys. Loser, I carved into the hood, each letter deep and deliberate. My phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. This is war. I typed back, bring it. As I drove home to my cramped studio apartment, I couldn't help but smile. Round 1 was over, and I'd landed the first real punch. But I knew they'd retaliate. Vanessa and her crew wouldn't take this lying down. I was counting on it. The character assassination began at dawn. I woke to my phone buzzing incessantly with notifications, social media mentions, news alerts, text messages from numbers I didn't recognize. Somewhere in the night, while I was sleeping peacefully for the first time in weeks, Vanessa's team had launched their counterattack. The headline on the local news website made my coffee taste bitter. Lottery winner's husband revealed as manipulative gold digger. The article was a masterpiece of selective editing and strategic omissions. My private emails, somehow obtained and leaked, were quoted out of context to paint me as a calculating schemer who had married Vanessa for her potential wealth. I know you'll be successful someday, read one email from our second year of marriage. I believe in you and want to support your dreams. Romantic sentiment twisted into mercenary calculation. Another email, sent during Vanessa's brief unemployment 3 years ago. Don't worry about the money. We're in this together, and we'll figure it out. The article suggested this was evidence of my long-term plan to exploit her finances. My phone rang. my supervisor at the water department. Eli, we need to talk. Can you come in early today? Sure, Mr. Patterson. Is there a problem? Just come in. We'll discuss it then. The tone told me everything I needed to know. I arrived at the municipal building to find a crowd of reporters waiting outside. Cameras flashed as I walked through the entrance. Questions shouted over each other. Mr. Turner, is it true you married your wife for money? How do you respond to allegations of financial manipulation? Are you planning to contest the divorce? I kept my head down and pushed through to the elevator. Patterson's office felt like a tribunal. He sat behind his desk with Linda from HR and someone I didn't recognize, probably legal counsel. Eli, sit down. Patterson's voice was grim. We've received some disturbing information about your personal situation. My personal situation has nothing to do with my work performance. Normally, I'd agree. But when that personal situation involves allegations of fraud and manipulation, it becomes a concern for the department. The unknown man leaned forward. Mr. Turner, I'm David Walsh from the city attorney's office. We've received complaints suggesting you might have used city resources for personal gain. That's ridiculous. What resources? Computer access, work time, city vehicles. There are allegations that you've been conducting personal business during work hours. I stared at them. You mean the legal research I did last night? On my personal laptop at home? We have reports of you making personal phone calls from your office, using city computers to access legal websites, taking extended lunch breaks for personal meetings. Every city employee made personal calls. Everyone used their computer for occasional personal business. Extended lunch breaks? I'd been working through lunch for months to cover for understaffing. Who made these complaints? Walsh consulted his notes. Anonymous tips to the city ethics hotline. Very detailed, very specific. Of course they were. Vanessa and her team had done their homework. Mr. Turner, Patterson said, I'm placing you on administrative leave pending investigation. You'll receive half pay until this is resolved. This is harassment. This is procedure, Walsh corrected. We have to take these allegations seriously. I cleaned out my desk while my coworkers watched with a mixture of curiosity and pity. 8 years of reliable service, and I was being escorted out like a criminal. The reporters were still waiting outside. This time I stopped. You want a statement? Here's your statement. My wife won $12 million and decided she didn't need me anymore. Everything else is just noise designed to distract from that simple fact. What about the allegations of manipulation? Shouted a reporter from Channel 7. What about the fact that she was having an affair with her boss while buying lottery tickets on company time? Seems like everyone's focused on the wrong manipulation. That got their attention. Cameras clicked rapidly as I walked to my car. My phone rang immediately. Vanessa. How dare you drag Chad into this publicly? How dare I tell the truth? That's rich, coming from someone who just tried to get me fired with anonymous complaints. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you don't. Let me guess, Shelley suggested filing ethics complaints to pressure me into accepting your lowball settlement offer. Silence. Then, you're being paranoid. Am I? Tell me, Vanessa, how did those reporters get my private emails? The ones from our personal account that only you had access to. Maybe you should have thought about that before you humiliated me at my party. Your party. Right. Our anniversary date, celebrating with your boyfriend. Very classy. Chad and you are going to be very disappointed when this is over. See you in court. I hung up and drove to Mickey's Bar, a dive near the industrial district where I knew I could drink in peace. The afternoon crowd was sparse. A few retirees, some shift workers, regulars who minded their own business. I was halfway through my second beer when I overheard the conversation at the next table. Saw him on the news. Can you believe that guy? I know, right? Married her for the money, obvious as anything. My wife says she always knew there was something off about him. Too nice, you know? Like he was putting on an act. $12 million. I'd put on an act, too. I turned around. Excuse me. 2 middle-aged men in work clothes looked up, startled. You're talking about me, Eli Turner, the gold-digging husband. They exchanged glances. Hey, man, we didn't mean... No, please continue. I'm curious about your wife's insights into my marriage. How long has she known me? Look, we're just repeating gossip and speculation based on a hit piece in the news, right? I stood up. For the record, I worked double shifts to pay for my mother-in-law's medical bills. I co-signed loans for my sister-in-law's business. I supported my wife through 3 career changes and 2 failed business ventures. But sure, I married her for money she didn't have. I left cash on the bar and walked out, their uncomfortable silence following me. Back in my studio apartment, I sat at my laptop and began planning my next move. If they wanted to play dirty, I could play dirty too. I started with social media. Gina's accounts were a goldmine of information, photos, check-ins, tagged locations. Her digital footprint painted a clear picture of the family dynamics. There was the photo from last Christmas. Vanessa rolling her eyes as I carved the turkey, captioned, "Ugh, Eli's trying so hard," posted while I was in the kitchen working to make their holiday perfect. The Mother's Day post showing Rhonda's expensive gifts with a comment thread about how some people, clearly meaning me, were too cheap to buy nice presents. I'd worked overtime for a month to afford that jewelry. The vacation photos from our trip to Mexico, with Gina's commentary about how I was such a buzzkill for wanting to stick to our budget instead of maxing out credit cards. Every post, every comment, every casual cruelty was documented and dated, a pattern of disrespect and manipulation going back years. I compiled it all into a comprehensive file. Then I created a simple website. The real story, 8 years of marriage, 3 days of betrayal. I uploaded everything, the emails in their full context, the financial records showing my contributions to the marriage, the timeline of Vanessa and Chad's relationship, the evidence of their lottery ticket purchase during work hours, and Gina's social media posts showing exactly what this family thought of me long before any lottery win. The website went live at midnight. By morning, it had 10,000 visitors. My phone started ringing at 6 a.m., reporters wanting interviews, strangers offering support, and one very angry call from Shelley Morrison. "You're going to regret this, Eli. We're going to destroy you in court." "Looking forward to it," I said. But I wasn't, really, because I knew they weren't done with me yet. And I was right. The courthouse steps were packed with reporters and curious onlookers. What should have been a routine divorce hearing had become a media circus, thanks to my website and the ongoing social media war between Team Vanessa and Team Eli. I straightened my tie, the same navy suit from the party crash, now my official battle armor, and walked through the crowd with my attorney, Janet Morrison, no relation to Shelley, thankfully, and a specialist in complex divorce cases. "Remember," Janet said as we climbed the steps, "let me do the talking. Don't react to their provocations." "I'll try." Inside the courtroom, Vanessa sat at the plaintiff's table with Shelley and 2 other lawyers I didn't recognize. She wore a conservative black dress and minimal makeup, playing the role of the wronged wife. Chad sat in the gallery behind her, along with Rhonda and Gina. Judge Patricia Hawkins called the court to order. She was a no-nonsense woman in her 60s, known for her fairness and impatience with theatrics. "This is a preliminary hearing regarding the injunction on lottery proceeds," Judge Hawkins announced. "Mrs. Morrison, you may proceed." Shelley stood up, her confidence evident. "Your Honor, this injunction is a vindictive attempt by Mr. Turner to punish his wife for exercising her legal right to divorce. The lottery ticket in question was purchased with Mrs. Turner's personal credit card, making her the sole legal owner of the winnings." She presented her evidence methodically. The credit card receipt, the store security footage showing only Vanessa at the register, witness statements from family members about the couple's marital problems. "Furthermore," Shelley continued, "Mr. Turner has engaged in a campaign of harassment and intimidation, including stalking Mrs. Turner at private events, vandalizing her friend's property, and launching a malicious website designed to humiliate and defame her." Judge Hawkins looked at me over her glasses. "Mr. Turner, these are serious allegations." Janet stood. "Your Honor, we'd like to present our evidence regarding the circumstances of the lottery purchase and the true nature of this marriage." "Proceed." Janet's presentation was devastating. She started with the timeline of Vanessa and Chad's relationship, using social media posts and witness statements to establish that their affair had been ongoing for months before the lottery win. "The lottery ticket was purchased at 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday," Janet explained, while both Mrs. Turner and Mr. Royce were supposed to be at work. Security footage shows them together at the convenience store, despite Mrs. Turner's claims that she was alone. She played the enhanced security footage on the courtroom's video system. The image was grainy but clear enough to show 2 figures entering the store together, Chad's distinctive height and build unmistakable. "More importantly, Your Honor, we have evidence that Mrs. Turner has been systematically hiding marital assets in preparation for this divorce." Janet presented bank records showing the 3 new accounts Vanessa had opened, along with transfer records showing money being moved around to obscure the paper trail. "This isn't about a lottery ticket, Your Honor. This is about a wife who planned to abandon her marriage the moment she came into money, and who is engaged in fraudulent concealment of assets to deprive her husband of his legal share." Shelley objected repeatedly, but the evidence was solid. Financial records don't lie. Then Janet played her trump card. Your Honor, we'd like to present evidence that this lottery win may not legally belong to Mrs. Turner at all. She handed a document to the bailiff, who passed it to Judge Hawkins. The judge's eyebrows rose as she read. Mrs. Turner was employed by Meridian Insurance Company at the time of the lottery purchase. According to her employment contract, which she signed upon hiring, any gambling activities during work hours are strictly prohibited and can result in termination and forfeiture of benefits. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Vanessa went pale, and Chad looked like he was about to be sick. Furthermore, Janet continued, Meridian's employee handbook specifically states that any winnings from gambling activities conducted in violation of company policy become property of the company. Shelley was on her feet. Objection. This is completely irrelevant to divorce proceedings. On the contrary, Judge Hawkins said, if the lottery winnings don't legally belong to Mrs. Turner, then they can't be considered marital property at all. Janet smiled. We've already contacted Meridian Insurance's legal department. They're very interested in pursuing this matter. I watched Vanessa's face crumble as the implications sank in. Not only might she lose half the money to me, she might lose all of it to her former employer. Your Honor, Shelley said desperately, even if there are employment issues to resolve, that doesn't change the fact that Mr. Turner has engaged in harassment and stalking. About that, Janet interrupted. We'd like to present evidence regarding who's really been engaging in harassment. She played a recording on her phone. Vanessa's voice, clear and unmistakable. We need to pressure him into accepting the settlement. File complaints with his employer, leak those emails to the media, make his life miserable until he gives up. Shelley's voice responded, Anonymous ethics complaints should do the trick, and I have contacts at Channel 7 who will run the story. The recording continued for several more minutes, detailing their strategy to destroy my reputation and career. This recording was made during a phone conversation between Mrs. Turner and her attorney 3 days ago, Janet explained. Texas is a one-party consent state, and Mrs. Turner was speaking to our client when she made these statements. That wasn't entirely true. I'd recorded Vanessa without her knowledge during one of her gloating phone calls, but Janet had found a legal way to present it. Judge Hawkins looked disgusted. Mrs. Morrison, did you advise your client to file false ethics complaints? Shelley was sweating now. Your Honor, Because if you did, that's grounds for disciplinary action by the state bar. The complaints were based on legitimate concerns. Based on this recording, the complaints were part of a coordinated harassment campaign designed to coerce Mr. Turner into accepting an unfavorable settlement. Judge Hawkins set down her gavel with authority. The injunction on lottery proceeds will remain in place pending resolution of the employment contract issues with Meridian Insurance. Mrs. Turner, you are hereby ordered to provide a complete accounting of all assets and expenditures since the lottery win. And Mrs. Morrison, I'm referring this matter to the state bar for review of your conduct. As the gavel fell, I felt a surge of satisfaction. Round 2 was definitely mine. Outside the courthouse, the media frenzy was even worse. Reporters shouted questions at Vanessa as she tried to push through the crowd, Shelley beside her looking shell-shocked. Chad grabbed my arm as I walked past. You think you're so smart, don't you? Smart enough, I said, shaking him off. This isn't over. We'll find another way. I'm sure you will, but next time, you might want to be more careful about who you're plotting against. That evening, I celebrated with a beer and takeout Chinese food in my studio apartment. The website traffic had exploded after the courthouse drama, with thousands of supporters leaving encouraging comments. But I knew Chad was right. This wasn't over. They'd escalate again, and next time they might not be so subtle about it. I was ready for them. The break-in happened on a Tuesday night while I was working late at the library, researching case law for Janet's next filing. I returned to my studio apartment at 11 p.m. to find the door ajar and my belongings scattered across the floor. They'd been thorough. Every drawer pulled out, every box opened, papers strewn everywhere. My laptop was missing, along with my backup hard drives and any physical documents related to the divorce case. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the suicide note. It sat on my small dining table, typed on what looked like my letterhead, signed with a passable forgery of my signature. The content was devastating, a confession of guilt, admissions of manipulation and fraud, and a final statement about being unable to live with the shame of my actions. I can't go on knowing what I've done to Vanessa, the note read. She deserves better than a man who married her for money and tried to steal her dreams. I'm sorry for everything. My hands shook as I read it. This wasn't just harassment anymore. This was an attempt to destroy me completely. I called 911. The police arrived within minutes, followed by paramedics and a detective named Rodriguez. They treated the scene like an active suicide investigation until I explained the situation. So you're saying someone broke in and planted a fake suicide note? Detective Rodriguez asked, his skepticism obvious. I'm saying someone is trying to frame me. This is part of an ongoing harassment campaign related to my divorce. Do you have any proof of that? I showed him my phone, pulling up the threatening text messages I'd been receiving for days. Anonymous numbers, but the timing was too convenient to be coincidental. We'll dust for prints, Rodriguez said, but unless we find clear evidence of forced entry or can trace these messages, there's not much we can do. As the police processed the scene, my phone rang. Vanessa. Eli, I just heard what happened. Are you okay? Her concern sounded genuine, which made it more infuriating. Cut the act, Vanessa. We both know who did this. I don't know what you mean. Chad told me someone broke into your apartment. Chad told you? How did Chad know about the break-in? I haven't told anyone except the police. Silence. Then, He must have heard it from someone. From who? The only people who know are me, the cops, and whoever did it. Eli, you're being paranoid. Am I? Someone breaks into my apartment, steals my legal documents, and plants a fake suicide note, and you think I'm being paranoid? A suicide note? Eli, that's convenient? Yeah, it would have been. Too bad I wasn't actually planning to off myself. I hung up and immediately called Janet. She arrived 30 minutes later, took one look at the forged note, and called her private investigator. This is attempted fraud, she said. Possibly criminal conspiracy. We need to document everything. The PI, a former cop named Mike Sullivan, examined the scene with professional thoroughness. He found something the police had missed, fresh scratches around the lock, indicating it had been picked rather than forced. Professional job, Sullivan said. Whoever did this knew what they were doing. Can you trace it back to them? Maybe. I'll start with your wife's boyfriend. Guys like that usually hire muscle rather than get their hands dirty. Over the next 2 days, Sullivan worked his contacts while I stayed in a cheap motel. The studio apartment felt contaminated now, unsafe. Janet filed an emergency motion for a restraining order against Chad and requested a full investigation of the break-in. The judge granted both requests, but Vanessa's team wasn't done. On Thursday morning, I woke to find my face plastered across the local news again. This time, the story was about the suicide note and my deteriorating mental state. Sources close to the investigation had leaked details about the break-in, but with a twisted narrative. According to the news report, I had staged the break-in myself, planting the suicide note as a desperate ploy for sympathy in the divorce proceedings. The story painted me as unhinged, dangerous, possibly suicidal. It quoted friends and family expressing concern for my mental health and suggesting I needed professional help. My phone rang constantly, reporters wanting interviews, former coworkers expressing fake concern, strangers offering unsolicited advice about therapy and medication. The worst call came from my own mother. Eli, honey, I saw the news. Are you really okay? Do you need to come home for a while? Mom, it's not true. Someone is trying to frame me. But the suicide note was planted by whoever broke into my apartment. I didn't write it. Are you sure? Because you've been under a lot of stress, and sometimes... Mom, I'm not suicidal. I'm angry, but I'm not giving up. Maybe you should talk to someone, a professional. Even my own mother was starting to doubt me. That's when I realized how effective their campaign really was. But Sullivan came through. He called Friday afternoon with news that changed everything. I found your burglar, he said. Guy named Tommy Kowalski, small-time criminal who does odd jobs for people with money. He's got a record for breaking and entering, forgery, intimidation. Can you connect him to Chad or Vanessa? Better than that. I've got him on video meeting with Chad at a gym downtown. Cash changing hands, very cozy conversation. Will he testify? He will now. Turns out Tommy doesn't like being hung out to dry. When the heat came down, Chad cut all contact. Tommy's feeling abandoned and vindictive. Janet arranged a meeting with Tommy and his public defender. In exchange for immunity, Tommy agreed to provide a full statement about Chad's instructions. Break in, steal documents, plant the suicide note, make it look like I was having a breakdown. The recording device had been Tommy's idea. Insurance against his employer. We had them. Saturday morning, I held a press conference on the courthouse steps. Janet stood beside me as I read a prepared statement. 3 days ago, my apartment was burglarized and a forged suicide note was planted in an attempt to frame me for fraud and manipulation. Today, we have evidence that this crime was orchestrated by Chad Royce at the direction of my estranged wife. I held up the legal documents. We have a signed confession from the perpetrator, video evidence of payment, and recorded conversations detailing the conspiracy. The reporters went wild, shouting questions over each other. Will you be pressing criminal charges? Will this affect the divorce proceedings? What's your response to allegations about your mental state? My mental state is just fine, I said, but I can't say the same for the people who thought they could destroy me with lies and criminal activity. That afternoon, Chad was arrested on charges of conspiracy, burglary, and fraud. The arrest was captured on video by news crews who had been following the story. Watching Chad being led away in handcuffs was the most satisfying moment of my life so far. But it was nothing compared to what was coming next, because Vanessa, desperate and cornered, was about to make her biggest mistake yet, and I was ready for her. The call came at 2 a.m. on Sunday morning. Vanessa's voice was slurred, probably from wine or prescription medication. Eli, we need to talk. It's 2 a.m, Vanessa. I know what time it is. I can't sleep. I keep thinking about everything that's happened. I sat up in the motel bed, instantly alert. Drunk confessions had a way of being useful in court. What about it? This has gotten out of hand. Chad being arrested, the media circus, all of it. This isn't what I wanted. What did you want? I wanted a clean break, a fresh start. I never meant for it to get this ugly. You hired someone to break into my apartment and plant a fake suicide note, Vanessa. It doesn't get much uglier than that. That was Chad's idea. I told him to back off, but he said you'd never stop fighting unless we gave you a reason to give up. I was recording the call, of course. Janet had insisted I record every conversation. So, you knew about it. Not until after. When I found out what he'd done, I was furious. Furious enough to call the police and report him? Silence. It's complicated. It's really not. Either you were part of the conspiracy or you weren't. Eli, listen to me. I want to make this right. What if we split the lottery money 50-50? No lawyers, no court battles, just a clean divorce and equal shares. 50-50 of what? The money might belong to Meridian Insurance, remember? My lawyer talked to them. They're willing to settle for $2 million and let me keep the rest. That still leaves $10 million to split between us. $5 million. Life-changing money. Enough to disappear, start over somewhere new, never have to think about any of these people again. It was tempting. What about Chad? I asked. Chad is out of the picture, permanently. I'm done with him. Because he got arrested? Or because he screwed up your plan? Because I realized he never cared about me. He just wanted access to the money. The irony was almost funny. Vanessa accusing someone else of being a gold digger. And what makes you think I'll trust you now? Because I'm offering you exactly what you wanted from the beginning, half of everything. I wanted my wife to honor her marriage vows. Money was never the point. The marriage is over, Eli. We both know that. But we don't have to destroy each other in the process. I let the silence stretch out, making her sweat. I'll think about it, I finally said. There's one condition. Of course there was. You have to call off the criminal prosecution against Chad and take down that website. The website stays up, and I don't control the criminal prosecution. That's the district attorney's decision now. You could ask them to drop the charges. I could, but why would I? Because $5 million is better than spending the next 2 years in court battles that might leave you with nothing. She had a point. Legal fees were mounting, and there was no guarantee of victory even with all our evidence. I'll consider your offer, I said, but I need time to think. How much time? A few days. This is a big decision. Eli, I know I hurt you. I know I handled this badly. But we were good together once, weren't we? Once. A long time ago. Maybe we could try again. Start fresh with the money, travel, see the world together. Now she was really desperate. You want to get back together? I want to try, if you're willing. I almost laughed. 3 weeks ago, she'd thrown me out of our house with $50,000 and a boyfriend waiting in the wings. Now that Chad was in jail and the money was tied up in court, suddenly she wanted to reconcile. I'll call you tomorrow, I said, and hung up. I immediately called Janet and played her the recording. She's panicking, Janet said. This is good for us. What if her offer is legitimate? $5 million is a lot of money. Eli, she just tried to frame you for fraud and conspiracy. You think she's suddenly developed a conscience? Maybe she's just scared. Maybe she's setting you up for something worse. Don't meet with her alone. But I was already planning to do exactly that, because I had an idea. Monday evening, I agreed to meet Vanessa at our old house, the one she'd kicked me out of 3 weeks earlier. She'd moved back in after Chad's arrest, probably feeling safer in familiar territory. I arrived at 8 p.m. to find the house lit up like a Christmas tree. Vanessa had gone all out, candles, wine, My favorite dinner cooking in the kitchen. She'd even put on the blue dress I'd bought her for our anniversary 2 years ago. "You look good," she said when she opened the door. "I've missed you." The performance was impressive. If I didn't know better, I might have believed she meant it. "Nice setup," I said, walking into the living room. "Very romantic." "I wanted tonight to be special, a new beginning for us." She poured wine, expensive stuff, probably bought with lottery money, and sat beside me on the couch, close enough that I could smell her perfume. "I've been thinking about what you said," she continued, "about marriage vows and commitment. You're right. I lost sight of what was important." "And what's that?" "Us, our partnership, the life we built together." She was good at this. If I hadn't spent the last 3 weeks being systematically betrayed and attacked, I might have fallen for it. "What about Chad?" "Chad was a mistake, a midlife crisis, I guess. I got caught up in the excitement of the money and made terrible decisions. Like trying to cheat me out of my share? Like not talking to you first. Like assuming you'd be happy with whatever I offered instead of treating you as an equal partner." She moved closer, her hand resting on my arm. "I want to make it right, Eli. The money, the marriage, all of it. And the criminal charges against Chad. He made his choices. He has to live with the consequences." Interesting. She was really willing to throw him under the bus. "So, what exactly are you proposing?" 50-50 split of the lottery money after the insurance company settlement. We dismiss the divorce proceedings and try to rebuild our marriage. And we both agree to stop the public warfare. No more websites, no more media interviews, no more dirty laundry. That's a generous offer. It's a fair offer. What we should have done from the beginning. She leaned in closer, her lips almost touching my ear. "I love you, Eli. I never stopped loving you. I just got lost for a while." This was the moment. The moment when the old Eli would have melted, forgiven everything, taken her back because he was too weak or too lonely to do otherwise. But I wasn't the old Eli anymore. I pulled out my phone and stopped the recording app. "That was beautiful, Vanessa. Really convincing." Her expression changed instantly, the mask slipping. "What?" "The performance, the seduction routine. Very well done." I stood up and walked to the window. "But you made one mistake." "I don't know what you're talking about." "You assumed I was still the same pushover you married 8 years ago, the guy who'd take whatever scraps you threw him and be grateful for it." I turned back to face her. "That guy doesn't exist anymore." Her face was cold now, the pretense abandoned. "So you're rejecting my offer?" "I'm rejecting your lies. Again." "Fine. Then we'll see you in court." "Actually, you won't." I pulled out a manila envelope and tossed it on the coffee table. Meridian Insurance decided to pursue their claim after all. Turns out they have a very strong case for recovering the full lottery amount. Vanessa grabbed the papers, her face going pale as she read. "This also means there's no marital property to divide," I continued. "The money was never legally yours to begin with." "You can't do this." "I didn't do anything. You did this when you decided to buy lottery tickets on company time with your boyfriend." She stood up, fury replacing the fake sweetness. "You vindictive little man. You'd rather see the money go to some insurance company than split it with me? I'd rather see justice done than reward your betrayal." "Justice? You call this justice?" "I call it consequences." She threw her wine glass at me. I ducked, and it shattered against the wall behind me. "Get out of my house." Technically, it's still our house until the divorce is final. But I was already walking toward the door. I'd gotten what I came for, her confession on tape and the satisfaction of watching her realize that she'd lost everything. "This isn't over," she screamed as I reached my car. "Yes," I said, "it is." As I drove away, I could see her silhouette in the living room window, probably calling her lawyer or her mother or whoever was left in her shrinking circle of allies. The next morning, Janet filed the recording with the court as evidence of Vanessa's continued attempts at manipulation and fraud. The media picked up the story within hours. By noon, it was over. Meridian Insurance's claim was upheld. The lottery winnings were forfeited to the company as per the employment contract Vanessa had signed. Chad remained in jail awaiting trial. Shelley Morrison was facing disciplinary action from the state bar, and Vanessa was left with nothing but legal bills and a reputation in ruins. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt empty. 8 years of marriage reduced to a legal victory and a pile of court documents, no winners, just varying degrees of loss. But as I sat in my studio apartment that night, eating takeout and watching the news coverage of our spectacular mutual destruction, I realized something important. I was free. For the first time in years, maybe decades, I was completely free to choose my own path without considering what Vanessa wanted or needed or expected. It was terrifying, and it was exactly what I needed. The phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Turner, this is Rebecca Chen from Pacific Systems. We saw your story in the news and were impressed by your technical background and your persistence. We'd like to offer you a position with our company. A new job, a fresh start, a chance to rebuild. I'm interested, I said. Excellent. Can you start Monday? I'll be there. After I hung up, I opened my laptop and began typing. The Eli Turner story, final chapter.